All right, today we're getting right into the heart of the world's largest democracy. We're going to look at two huge forces that are shaping India's future: demographics and dynasties. And believe it or not, it all kicks off with one pretty simple question.
So is every vote in India equal? You'd think so, right? I mean, one person, one vote. That's the bedrock of any democracy. But in reality, well, the answer is way more complicated than you might think. The truth is, depending on where you live in India, your vote could actually have a lot more or a lot less power than someone else's.
Okay, just look at these numbers for a second. The difference here is it's just staggering. So an MP, that's a member of parliament in the state of Bihar, represents about 3.1 million people. But then you go down south to Tamil Nadu, and an MP there represents just under 2 million. Think about that for a second. That means a single vote in Tamil Nadu carries almost 50% more weight than a vote up in Bihar. So how on earth did that happen?
Right. To get to the bottom of this huge imbalance, we have to talk about something called malapportionment.
So what is malapportionment? Well, it's just a fancy word for when a state's share of the population doesn't match up with its share of political seats. And here's the kicker. This situation in India isn't some kind of accident. Nope, it's the direct result of a political pause button that got pushed way back, decades ago.
And that brings us to what's known as the 50-year freeze. Seriously, for almost half a century, India's political map has been, well, frozen in time, even while its population has completely transformed. It's wild. But to really get why this happened, we first have to understand how the system is supposed to work. You see, the Indian Constitution actually has this built-in fix for this exact problem. It's called delimitation. And the idea is super simple. After every census, you have a commission that redraws all the voting maps. The whole point is to make sure each member of parliament represents a roughly equal number of people. You know, to keep that whole one person, one vote principle fair and square. But yeah, that's not what happened.
So here's how this freeze went down. It all goes back to the census in 1971. That became the magic number. Then in 1976, an amendment to the Constitution literally froze the number of parliamentary seats each state could have, locking them into those 1971 population figures. Now this freeze was supposed to end in 2001, but it didn't. It just got extended. And the very next time this can even be looked at again is after 2026, which leads to the big question: why on earth would they freeze it in the first place?
So, what was the reason? Well, here's the core of it. Back in the 1970s, some states, especially in the South, were doing a really good job with family planning. Their population growth was slowing down. But other states, mostly in the North, weren't. So the fear was, if you redraw the maps based on population, you'd basically be punishing the states that did what the national government wanted them to do. Their political power would shrink. So the freeze was meant to be a temporary solution, a solution that has now been in place for half a century.
Okay, so this freeze has had some really deep consequences. And it's not just about abstract numbers on a chart. It's about who actually holds power in a system that has these massive built-in imbalances. Let's take a look at the data to see what I mean. And you can see the results of the freeze right here. It's created this huge gap. If you look at their populations today, big states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar are short about 12 and 9 seats respectively. At the same time, Tamil Nadu and Kerala have 9 and 6 more seats than they otherwise would. The bottom line is, the political map of India just doesn't reflect what the country actually looks like anymore.
And this isn't just a state versus state issue. It affects everyone. Because the total number of MPs has been frozen, it hasn't kept up with the massive population growth. So today, the average member of parliament represents 2.5 million people. That's more than triple the cap of 750,000 that was originally set in the Constitution. I mean, how can one person genuinely represent that many people? It's incredibly difficult.
So that brings us to the next big piece of the puzzle. When the whole system is this warped, and representation is stretched so thin, who are the players filling these powerful seats? What kind of people are actually getting elected? Well, the answer, in a lot of cases, is political families. A groundbreaking report found that a jaw-dropping 21%, that's more than 1 in every 5, of India's current legislators come from established political dynasties.
So what exactly do we mean by dynastic politics? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's when political power gets concentrated within the same families. Influence, seats, leadership roles, they all get passed down from one generation to the next by using the family name, their money, and their connections to keep a lock on power.
Now, it's really easy to think this is just a problem with 1 or 2 specific parties, right? But the data, it tells a totally different story. Look at this. dynastic representation is pretty much the same across the board. It's about 20% in the big national parties, 22% in state-level parties, and it's even higher, 24% for smaller parties and independents. This isn't a bug, it's become a feature of the entire system.
And by the way, all this data comes from some really incredible work done by the Association for Democratic Reforms, or ADR, and the National Election Watch. These guys go through thousands of official candidate filings to piece together this incredibly detailed picture of what's really going on.
So where do we go from here? Well, remember that delimitation freeze? It's finally up for review after 2026, which means India is standing at a massive crossroads. Seriously, the decisions made in the next few years could define its democracy for generations to come. And there are some pretty big ideas on the table.
Let's break down 3 of the main ideas being debated. First option, just increase the total number of seats in the lower house, the Lok Sabha. That way, you can balance things out without any state actually losing the seats they have now. Second option, redesign the upper house, the Rajya Sabha, to be more like the US Senate, where every single state gets the same number of seats no matter how big or small its population is. And then there's a third, pretty radical idea. What if seats in that upper house were based not on population, but on how much a state contributes to the economy?
See, each one of these solutions is really trying to answer the same massive question. In a country as enormous and diverse as India, how do you strike the right balance between the power of the people, the power of the states, and the power of money? There are absolutely no easy answers here. But the good news is, after being frozen for 50 years, this crucial debate is finally starting to heat up.